his take on global events from, Georgia to Russia to even this new NIST report on WTC7. Thanks for joining us, Bob.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Well, it's always a pleasure, and you've become quite a regular on the show because you have such great analysis. I really want to get your take on, the last week's activities with Georgia and Russia. I mean, the mainstream media is still saying, Russia attacked Georgia, they're the aggressors, the bear is back. Meanwhile, there's been a slight de-escalation in the fighting over there. Where do you think this is all headed, Bob?
Well, first of all, Georgia, or I should say the United States and Israel, were the attackers. And when Russian forces were brought in, they ran. I don't know about the Americans and the Israelis, but I know the Georgians ran. And so they invaded.
Yeah, they invaded South Ossetia. There's no doubt about it. A little 12-year-old American girl went on Fox and said, hey, we were in South Ossetia. Georgia attacked us. It's pretty much admitted in a lot of these mainstream articles, but it's during the bottom or the middle of the article, and then they just blatantly say that Russia is the aggressor no matter what.
Yeah, you're right, and that's unfortunate, but in a way it's fortunate in as much as the public knows different, and all they're doing is losing more credibility. The question is where we're going. Well, first of all, this is going to put a dent in NATO. I don't think that Georgia is going to be an immediate candidate for NATO. I think NATO has lost a lot of credibility by standing by and allowing this to happen. The Russians were peacekeepers, and it was blatant invasion what went on. I mean, I can't think of what they were thinking of in Washington and Tel Aviv, never mind in Georgia. And so I think other nations in the area are going to be more reluctant to deal with the United States, NATO, Israel, Georgia, etc. And so Russia is going to make big inroads. Last Saturday, I can't think of the name of the country, but they Turkmenistan signed a deal with Russia to send their natural gas via Russian pipelines. That was the gas that we'll call it the American consortium wanted to send through Georgia south to Turkey, Seyhan, and then on to Haifa. And so the second pipeline for gas is kind of out of the question now. Now I understand that Kazakhstan wants to divert their oil from the way that they're shipping it through Russian pipelines as well. And so that's oil that will not be coming down through the Caspian Basin that could have been eligible to the other pipeline.
Well, is that going to affect the price here in America,
sure.
Bob? You do believe it's going to affect the price here. Well, I want to get your take on that and a lot more on the other side. Remember, folks, fabled enemies. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It is the Alex Jones Show. I am Jason Bermas, sitting in this one last week. I'll be here till next Thursday, and then it's back to New York for me. We're going to be covering the DNC with live feeds over at Infowars.com of Alex Jones and others on the Infowars team. Really looking forward to it. But right now we're talking to Bob Chapman of the InternationalForecaster.com, and we were talking about all these pipelines and how America seems to be losing control of these pipelines, and you think that this is going to affect the price of gas in this country?
No, I really don't. There's multiple sources. It'll affect the ability of oil companies from the Netherlands, England, France, and the United States from getting more supply, and that could be an issue with all the problems that are going on in Nigeria and the diminishing exports of oil from Mexico. But I don't think at this point all of that is a factor in the big picture of oil. And so I discount that. Oil, it's the fundamentals more than anything else. Yes, there has been excessive speculation, and that's been taken care of by the market itself. Mm-hmm. And part of that was the inability of speculators to continue to be able to borrow as much money as they'd like to, and that's called a deleveraging process. And it was natural that a correction should have taken place. Unfortunately, they took gold and silver down with them, although they have rallied back somewhat, as have the commodities. But I think both groups are looking for a bottom in here. And I had previously said I expected somewhere between 1 and 120 on oil as a support level, and I think that's what we're getting. To go on with the situation with Russia and others, I think Russia was underestimated. I don't think that Zbigniew Brzezinski thought that Russia would move on Georgia, which they did. And they are showing no fear, if you may. And I think the relationship with NATO is over. I think the Israelis are going to suffer from this in as much as the Russians were very cooperative in helping them try to discern what was going on in a nuclear basis with Iran, and that'll all be shut down. So Israel isn't going to have that opportunity in the future because of their actions and the aggression that occurred by Georgia. They had been training and supplying weapons along with the United States for the last 6 years. And their efforts didn't turn out too well because they had as good as equipment in Georgia, if not better, than what the Russians had. I think that foreign policy is going to change tremendously. I think Europe has seen that the U.S. has gone off with Israel and what I would call another cockamamie idea, and they made fools out of themselves again. And Europe's saying, hey, you know, these guys supply 1/3 of our gas to Western Europe. I don't think we ought to go along with these insane ideas anymore. And so I think America has lost great credence with the Western nations in Europe. And Europe's concerned, and they should be, not only because of the gas situation, but Russia is a neighbor, and if things get nasty, they're going to get hit first. I think this could lead to the breakup of NATO as well, and maybe something would replace it, but I think NATO is pretty much done for.
So you think that
I don't think most people have seen that yet.
So you think NATO's going to break up? Why? Because it's surrounding Russia on the U.S.'s behalf right now, and now we have this conflict? I mean, do you see a restructuring of that Russian region altogether, South Ossetia, Georgia?
Well, that could be. That could happen. It all depends on how hard the U.S. pushes. Mm-hmm. Like if in the Ukraine, Sebastopol, if they decide, Ukraine decides to put some heat on Russian shipping, which they have a 17-year lease left, then Russia's just going to take them over. They're not going to fool around with them. And any other
and you don't think someone like NATO would
in the
get
area
involved?
that causes problems, they're going to move against them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
the U.S. and with the help of these NGOs, which is these fronts by George Soros, those are non-governmental organizations, they've really corrupted the political system in many of those former Soviet countries. And the Soros and the CIA, et cetera, MI6, have been able to essentially appoint their own people to run those governments. And that's going to change because I don't think that the people in Ukraine are going to want to tangle with the Russians, nor in any other Baltic state. And so I think the Americans have lost credibility. I think NATO will break up. I think the Americans are going to be asked to leave Germany. And so there's a lot of things going to happen through the stupidity of these people.
Well, so do you think that this is really just another indication of the decline of the American empire? Do you really think that that America is not going to go kicking and screaming and try to set off another, attack or another conflict? Or do you really think that they're just going to back off?
Well, I think there's a good chance of another conflict. There's several spots, and Kosovo is one of them. It's a transit point for narcotics from out of Afghanistan by the CIA to Western Europe and the rest of the world. And that could be a catalyst. You could also have an eventual extension into Iran, but I rather doubt it. I think that just the winding down of what's going on in the Middle East is going to hurt American foreign policy. But I don't really look at things in that light. I look at them in the light of who's behind the scenes running the show. Mm-hmm. And it's obvious, even though you hear all of this thunder and lightning about Barack Obama, the Illuminati wants Mr. McCain in there. And it's very important to watch out for who the vice president candidate will be. And if they are elected, Mr. McCain is an elderly man, like myself, I might add. And